Hello guys, welcome back to another video, and today we are reacting to film theory, the Tide Pod Challenge, exposed by the film theory. So we don't expect on 3, 2, 1, let's react.
Now I'm sure you've seen the latest wave of PSAs imploring you not to eat a Tide Pod.
No, Tide.
Well, I'm not here to tell you not to eat a Tide Pod. I'm just gonna tell you what to expect if you try. You see, the pod's outer layer is a plastic wrapping that puts its contents under pressure, so you don't have to bite down all that hard for the gel inside to explode out. If the gel does indeed come into contact with the insides of your mouth, which is kind of the point in all this, its low pH levels will begin killing any cells it comes into contact with immediately. And when those cells die, they don't just vanish, they leave behind their remains, leaving your mouth filled with dead cells and damaged tissue as the gel causes an immediate burning sensation. A burning sensation that will be agonizingly painful. The gel of the pod is thick, and because of how thick and sticky it is, if some of it goes down your throat, it can become stuck or lodged in your esophagus, killing even more cells as it goes. This, in turn, will kick your immune system into high gear, resulting in swelling. That swelling of your esophagus can also affect the muscles that control your breathing, meaning you just might find yourself choking even if you do happen to vomit up the detergent. If you manage to survive the Tide Pod Challenge by not choking to death, congratulations! You now get the joy of spending several days with the lingering pain of chemical burns inside of your body. Now, for those of you who fancy yourself hardcore enough for a real challenge, I've got 2 words for you. Chubby bunny.
Chubby bunny is more dangerous than the Tide Pod Challenge? I don't believe that, because the Tide Pod Challenge really seems more dangerous than the Chubby Bunny Challenge. I mean, marshmallows are edible and Tide Pods aren't. So I don't
Internet, welcome to Film Theory, where today we're talking about dumb news.
Dumb news.
And by dumb news, I don't mean people chomping on Tide Pods. I'm talking about the media that gobbled up this story faster than an unattended 6-year-old with brightly colored detergent packets. As the story goes, sometime in late December 2017, several viral tweets brought up the idea of eating Tide Pods like candy. The biggest being this thread with everyone's favorite lunchtime snack gushers trying to get them to make a Tide Pod themed flavor. Now, this was far from the first time that the idea of detergent packet equals candy was brought up, but it was the first time that people actually took it seriously, causing a supposed epidemic sweeping through the internet as kids across the country started filming themselves cramming laundry detergent into their mouths. The internet...
Why would you eat laundry detergent? It doesn't sound fun, and it is not fun. Why? Just for internet views?
Began mocking the trend in its usual fashion. Numerous businesses moved to cash in. YouTube and Facebook began banning Tide Pod videos, and Tide released what turned out to be one of the most baffling PSAs of all time.
No.
And of course, there was the requisite mainstream media coverage wagging their fingers at teenagers across the country saying, "Can you believe kids these days?" Or, "Oh, these stupid teenagers trying to find viral fame." Except they're completely wrong to blame the teenagers. This time, mainstream media is the one to blame. If you stop and look at the data, it becomes clear that the story of this dangerous new trend online was something that they created. They took a small handful of jokes and videos and blew it up into a fad that suddenly had thousands of copycats. So don't be wagging your finger at kids these days, news media. You're the problem this time, and good old Mad Pat is about to show you why. A January 22nd press release from the American Association of Poison Control Center reported that between January 1st and January 14th, they received a total of 39 cases of teens intentionally exposing themselves to liquid laundry packets. 39 cases in 14 days. The following week, there were an additional 47 calls. In other words, we see a huge spike in the number of Poison Control Center calls relating to teens ingesting Tide Pods after January 14th. Now, remember that date because it's not just an increase in calls after January 14th, it's also an increase in videos. As I mentioned
Okay.
before, most people claim that teens started munching on Tide Pod packets in late December and through early January. But if you actually look at the number, that just isn't true. From December 1st through January 7th, there's only 242 Tide Pod videos across all of Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Yeah, I checked them all. Now, that
I mean, that seems a lot of people eating Tide Pods.
may seem like a lot, but look at this. Between the 7th and 14th, there were 387 more in 1 week as
387
opposed to 5
more.
weeks. But here's where things start to get crazy. Between the 14th and the 21st, 1,502.
1,502 Tide Pod videos in just 1 week. So there's a total of 2,000 people that actually ate Tide Pods.
New Tide Pod videos get uploaded in just 7 days. The next week, another 1,517 new videos. So any way you look at the data, it
Just
seems like
keeps
between the
increasing.
13th and 14th, something happened that caused a sudden spike in Tide Pod related incidents. This period here is when the trend blew up. Now, you might think it was online influencers talking about the trend that spread awareness of the problem, but that's definitely not the case here. The top Tide Pod video online belongs to the meme lord Can Your Chair Do This PewDiePie, whose video on the subject was released on January 4th, racking up most of
January
its
4th.
6 million views in a matter of 5 days. If he were truly the one driving more videos to be made, you would see an uptick in the aftermath of his video. But what you actually see is the exact opposite. Looking at Tide Pod video uploads day by day, the trend was practically dead around the 9th and 10th, having only around 20 videos uploaded each of those days, the lowest point that they had been for months. Which means that for the first time ever, the media can't blame something on ya boy PODS. Truth be told, most of the internet was kinda over Tide Pods by that point. Nope, if the news is gonna point the finger of blame at anyone, it has to be at themselves. January 12th is when Tide released their no PSA. The next day is when news organizations really started to pick up on this story, prompting Google searches for Tide Pod Challenge to hit an all-time high, increasing to 10 times the amount of search traffic relative to the previous week. And it's here when we see the uploads of videos labeled with Tide Pods start to skyrocket, reaching between 100 and 300 new uploads every single
300
day.
new
Nearly
uploads
10
every
times
single
more uploads per day than when this quote-unquote epidemic was supposedly so bad earlier in the month. The news media had created a mountain out of a molehill, sparked hundreds of copycats, and thus created the dumbest and potentially most dangerous meme of 2018. Now, let me be clear, I don't think they did any of this intentionally. Truth be told, they're just not smart enough. For instance, after Tide Pods became a fad, a number of posts appeared on social media from people photographing stores that had anti-theft measures in place for the detergent. People in the media found those posts and concluded, hey, it must be because of that crazy new challenge. Except there's a problem with those stories. Retailers like Walmart and Kroger have been keeping products locked up to prevent theft for years, with news stories dating all the way back to 2012 reporting that laundry detergent is one of the market's most shoplifted items. But hey, why bother to check the facts when we have these viral tweets to go off of? Surely these are 100% factually accurate. The story writes itself. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that in their coverage of this meme, the news created a huge case of copycat effect. According to David Phillips, sociologist at University of California at San Diego, the copycat effect goes as follows. Quote, when I'm waiting at a traffic light and the light is red, sometimes I wonder whether I should just cross and jaywalk. Then somebody else does it, and so I do it too. I'm getting permission to act from someone else who's engaging in a deviant act. End quote. In other words, watching other people engage in certain behaviors makes it more acceptable for us to engage in those same activities. Logan Paul. Oh, excuse me. But in the case of Tide Pods, the sophisticated internet users knew that it was mostly meant as a joke. But once it hit mainstream media, those people just started to do it because they thought it was real. In fact, one area of heavy research right now has featured sociologists looking into how reporting teen suicides actually causes suicide rates to increase. This applies locally as well as on the national level. When Marilyn Monroe's suicide was widely reported on, the national suicide rate increased by by 12%. Because of this, many news organizations have policies in place against reporting teen suicides in obituaries. In the process, these news organizations are acknowledging that they have an ethical responsibility to protect the welfare of the public, which then kinda goes against what we're about to talk about next, how they choose their stories. Because all of this begs the question, just how widespread of an epidemic was the Tide Pod nonsense? Earlier I mentioned the 86 total cases cited by poison control, which at first glance seems like a lot. But to steal a line from PewDiePie, context matters. Poison control centers across the US receive millions of calls every single year. In 2016 alone, American poison control centers received 46,306 calls from parents concerned that their kid had consumed too many vitamins. If 86 people eating a Tide Pod and calling poison control is cause for a news frenzy lasting for weeks, then where the heck's the news story about the 46,000 kids chomping down on too many Flintstones chewables? Just looking at the numbers, telling parents not to let their kids eat too many vitamins may seem like it would be the much more useful PSA than having Gronk tell us,
use Tide Pods for washing, not eating.
Well, as it turns out, the fact that Tide Pod ingestion is so statistically insignificant is actually a huge contributor to how it became such a big story. Research has shown that people respond most to news if it reports stories that are unique, which actually makes sense when you stop and think about it, right? The word new is even in the name news. This is why a crazy murderous clown roaming through the woods is likely to make national headlines, while deaths caused by traffic accidents just don't. In terms of actual danger to you, traffic accidents are a much bigger threat, but they just aren't newsworthy. They're an accepted part of everyday life. Because people react to news stories based on novelty, the actual prevalence of the issue, like Tide Pod poisoning, doesn't actually matter. In fact, the more common it is, the less likely it's gonna get reported on. That's why tens of thousands of vitamin overdoses get ignored, while a handful of Tide Pod challenges are your top story for weeks. What's more, people are more likely to respond to news stories based on how threatening they sound. Research has shown that stories about non-threatening topics just don't get the same kind of emotional response as stories informing people about threats to their safety. This is why reporting always slants negative. Reporting on weird dangers of the modern world is the most reliable way to keep an audience engaged. And what's weirder and more scary sounding to traditional media than trends that teenagers are engaging with on social media? Conveniently leave out the part that shows that the number of people actually engaging in this behavior is minuscule, and you've got yourself a viral news story and a nation overreacting to something that wasn't really a big deal in the first place. And all us people who understand how to use the internet and internet culture suffer as a result. This whole Tide Pod story, as dumb as it is, serves as an important reminder that now more than ever, media seems to be concerned not with keeping us informed, but instead with keeping us engaged. While it's absolutely fun to laugh at all the memes, most of us missed out on the real story here. That this whole threat was basically a manufactured craze that even at the height of its popularity was barely even noticeable in terms of the total number of people it was actually affecting. It also serves as a good reminder that directly lying to us isn't the only way for news to mislead us. It's actually possible for the media to tell stories that are technically factually true while also giving us an inaccurate view of what's really going on in the world around us. The biggest bias in media isn't how stories are told, but which stories are told. For the last 3 years, I've been honored to partner with Bill and Melinda Gates to talk about their...
So yeah guys, thanks for watching, and of course, peace out, be blessed, peace.